show going. All right. Okay. So we're back. It's a Thursday. We're here for Think and Link, Brand New World. We have two amazing guests, Christine and Guido. We will be talking about packaging, healthcare, design thinking, all kinds of interesting subject areas. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But first, a message for our sponsor, Capsule. There it shows up in the chat, so we know. Go browse that while you're listening to us. Look at some interesting case studies. Check out what we've done. If we're going to head down the medical route, I might as well talk about the fact that we've actually worked with Medline. So full disclosure, Christine has been a client. And we have spent a lot of time together at conferences and at events because Capsule does these kinds of speeches in places we visit. And been at events, and I've always had this interesting perspective. We'll probably talk about this at some point in time, but like what makes for the audience and what makes for the speaker, right? Because these are both two great speakers, but also two great audience members, which I think are both important roles in the conversation. Check out capsule.us. We are a special projects team here in Minneapolis, and we do a lot of interesting things in the area of marketing, brand, and design. And if you know somebody out there that needs something in that area, always, send them our way. We appreciate it. It helps us pay for this event, right? It helps us put this together and bring inspired people into the conversation. So without any more of that bramble and whatnot, I'm going to hand it over to Christine to give her background. And then we're going to, after each of your backgrounds, I'm going to have Kelly do our first question. So Christine, a little background for our audience.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to be talking to you, Aaron and Kelly and everybody else. So yes, Christine Mao. I had a long career in CPG, consumer packaged goods, working on brands that I loved, like Kleenex. And I think I was most recently leading the global brand design for across Europe, Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and that was so exciting. Came back then to the States and did a little bit of a pivot in my career and moved over into brand strategy at Medline, where I'm learning so much about healthcare. So we'll talk about the rest in the discussion. I'll hand it over to Guido.
Yeah, hello everybody. So I'm so excited to join this actually with Christine. We had a couple of journeys speaking in all over the world, so what I always enjoyed. She made me nervous, but I enjoyed this. So Guido Schmitz. I'm usually consider me as the first biological trial from Bayer. So I worked for 40 years in the company, family orientated. For me, it was never a question what I do. I had to work for Bayer. So was born, everybody in my family, everybody where I lived worked for Bayer. Had different roles, start purely apprentice engineering. Then I transformed me a little bit to a pharmaceutical expert in processing, packaging, formulation. So I actually touched everything. And 2003, I was on an international assignment for 3 years, come to the US, still here. Yeah, I love it. I adapted design in my work space based on inspiration of designers like Debbie Millman, Christina, that I listen and see their way, how they see the world and try to have impact. And I try to adapt, let me say, my engineering and science thinking in the design thinking. So yeah, happy to share with you some thoughts.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
This is great. Kelly, get us started with
I am ready to get started. Yes, Christine, and very excited to have you here. So thank you for joining us, as I'm sure as well. I'm going to dive right in. And actually, Guido, you started just now mentioning your perspective on what we call design thinking, or what the general public calls design thinking. Would love to hear from both of you your perspective, or certainly starting with your definition of what is design thinking. I think we can obviously hear multiple layers across industries, how that's applied within organizations. Your definition, and then how you think organizations, both in your own careers, can apply this mindset to drive positive change. Who wants to start? Guido, do you want to start since you were
I
new
would
to that?
start, but usually I'm German, ladies first. But when
Ah,
Christina say I should go first, I go first. I should go first.
yes, go ahead, Guido.
Okay. So yeah, design thinking for me, I usually start these kind of discussion. I like to do more than thinking. Yeah. So what I love this approach. I love to design, but my way to see design is multiple areas to bring science, engineering, and products together. That's for me design thinking, to see a holistic approach of things and not go a workshop and try to inspire people. They attend one day a workshop and I think they're innovative. So that's a little bit my perspective of where big industry goes. I think the process of design thinking is the right way to do. The question is how people take it. And I think my experience in a huge pharmaceutical company, that there are waves. I be innovator, I'm a design thinker, I'm a sustainability people, and that falls down and comes back. I think the pure process, what is behind design thinking, is not right taken in big companies. And now you say, look, we did so many design thinking workshops and nothing coming out. Yeah, you did so many other workshops and nothing coming out. I think the key thing is who drives design thinking, and yeah, don't see it linear, bring it in a holistic process that you don't lose too much time and bring all elements in, that you come in the end of the day to something tangible to launch. Yeah. And I think that big companies not able to be innovative or launch anymore has nothing to do with the process, has to do with the organization, they're thinking linear. Yeah. So I think it's a very important process if we handle this right.
Thank you. Great response.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Christine.
What Guido said. No. So to me, design thinking, it's really a mindset, and it's one about rejecting assumptions. So often people come in and they're like, this is my problem, and we got to like create a new widget, right? And design thinking is sort of identifying what is the real problem that we need to solve, because a new widget might not be the answer. And then basing it on human observation. And to me, the most powerful part is that you're iterating to learn. You're not prototyping to validate, right? Did I get it right, Mr. Consumer, Mr. User? Iterating of what did I get wrong? What could I do better? So you just keep iterating and making it better and making it better and making it better. And applying this thinking in healthcare, we use it in product development, but also in like driving sustainable change. So like right now, I'm going to be facilitating some workshops with some healthcare leaders to address nurse burnout, right? So our clinicians have had for COVID, and these poor people have been giving up so much, and they've seen so much now, and they need it, just a minute for themselves, right? They need to take care of themselves. So how can we address that? So we're going to like figure out what is the how might we in this situation. And then the second thing I'm going to be applying design thinking to is going to be like, how do we motivate people beyond like maybe the 60% to get their COVID vaccinations? How do we, make this achievable to get to that herd immunity that we've heard about, right? So design thinking can be product innovation, but it can also be bigger.
Love that. That's great. If you don't mind, Christine, if I just follow up with a question around what barriers you're seeing to integrating that way of thinking, maybe not specifically in your organization, but that you've heard, because obviously the size of the organization can make it difficult. How do you adopt those practices or, again, way of thinking? Any thoughts on that?
So yeah, I haven't run into, at least where I am right now, resistance to it. What I found when I got to Medline is there were a couple people who had on their own invented design thinking. In other words, they weren't part of the design community. They weren't part of like engineering R&D, and had kind of come up with this process of how they were trying to help the clinicians in healthcare improve, some of the things they're trying to do. And I was like, oh my gosh, you are doing design thinking. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, let me show you. And so then we actually went and we got certified. So it was myself and another person certified to facilitate design thinking so that we could then bring that back and begin to grow the discipline. But we don't really, I guess we don't promote it as design thinking. We just say, let's talk about this issue and how do we want to go about solving it?
Right.
So it's a little bit of a behind the scenes. This might be our technical term, our process, but we're not selling it in as this is a new great thing that we're going to do.
Got it. Thank you. That's great. Thanks for sharing, Christine. Thank you.
Yeah. That is absolutely wonderful. I mean, thinking about empathy and specific for the nurses and what they're having to deal with and broader healthcare professionals, putting yourself in their shoes, kind of a critical thing at this time. And you're right, it was a big deal before this, and now it's even more critical to think about that. So, Christine, I didn't give you this question, but I asked Guido when we did our pre-call about the idea that designers see the future. Though we all see the future, I'm curious about do designers see a different future? Now, I know, Guido, you weren't a designer by trade, but you've become a designer, and you are definitely what people consider a designer. Do you think designers see a different future, different perspective on the world?
Yeah, let me say, I think a lot of designer, I would slash the designer stress creativity. Yeah, so when you see a lot of people say innovation, I think innovation is a structured process. Creativity can be chaotic. Yeah, so that means you put different elements together and create something big. In my experience, the most futuristic thinker coming out of the design world, maybe not necessarily designer per se, but they're the designer by heart. Yeah. So by training, but they have the design elements. And so I would say the people that understand design, really, they're also the people that can impact the future stronger than normal, let me say, marketing people or supply chain, because I usually say the speed of the world is exponential. Our thinking is linear. So that shows you when you come with something cool, the speed of the world outpaces what we know. And big corporations don't like to leave the line what they know. So that means the big picture thinking comes from people that are creative, they're designers, and not people that are working on numbers. Yeah. So I would agree. I think I would go further. When you're looking in circular economy thinking, everything what we do and everything what we learn, designer has the responsibility to see the world different, because in their design, they can implement all the necessary steps that are important. Yeah, like take product material out of the nature, usually I say this kind of change of ownership thinking. Yeah, before I design something, I have to know what's happened afterwards. Who is doing this when you don't have the design passion?
Yeah, another level. You have a responsibility to see a different future.
I think so.
Yeah. You are good, man. You are so good. Christine.
Yeah, I think where some people might just see problems and issues and kind of be like weighted down by the impact of all of that. I think designers are inherently problem solvers, and they see all of these as opportunities of like, could I figure out a way to do that better, to do that faster, to do that more sustainable? So I think designers are seeing a more sustainable future, and one that's like really beautiful and elegantly designed, but using fewer resources and having less impact. So I think it's exciting how designers see the world. I don't think they're even aware that they see it differently.
Yeah, but earlier, because they have interest in certain things. So that means you see things maybe earlier before other people. So for example, you pushing design thinking. Now everybody in big companies said we have to do design thinking workshops. They're years behind. So that means I think designers see things way earlier or adapt earlier, and you have to bring us in the organization or around us faster.
Yeah, I think that's true, Guido, that creatives, designers tend to be early adapters. Yeah.
That's a great point. When we're talking about the innovation and the speed of, and I'd love your both of your thoughts on this. How have you seen this pandemic impact directly both the healthcare and related fields, and then Guido, what you're doing in sustainability and innovation? is it too soon to know? Are we seeing some positive in terms of how rapidly things are progressing because they have to? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think COVID has been an accelerant. It is accelerating some of the things that were already in plan, and that maybe you're doing kind of at this pace of like, okay, we're going to give that a year and do this and that, right? And now it's like, we have to figure out how to reach from a marketing perspective, how do we reach our customers like immediately and with new information every day, and how to make that accessible. And then how do you support the caregivers on the front lines? They needed information, they needed PPE. So how do you reinvent the supply chain to be more responsive? So again, things that were maybe in the works or like on the future horizons have all come into fruition in like 6 months. It just demanded that you be better and you be faster.
Which is I think we can all say is a positive,
Yeah.
Under the unfortunate circumstances, but certainly positive impact for sure. Thanks, Christine. Guido, any thoughts on
I have a lot.
Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay, please share them.
Yeah, let me say, COVID shows me one thing very clear. This is what we have to do. I cannot alone anymore. I cannot isolate myself. I have to work in collaboration that we never thought before. And then what Christina said, how fast we get a clinical trial done. That take you 3 years, 5 years. Why is this now so fast? Maybe we put ourselves in so many people that control work of other people. Yeah. Very clear. COVID showed us very clear. This is what we have to do. I cannot do alone. I need good collaboration. I have to pull the smartest and good best resources together. Second, COVID shows me very clear our globalization create huge risk. Yeah, when you see this, we have what 60% of all ingredients in pharmaceutical coming out of Asia, 28%, 25% out of Europe, 5% of actives only produced in the US. So when something happens, we don't get the stuff anymore. Yeah, so I think a rethink of what means globalization for us. And we have to very carefully, when you're looking in the clothing industry, I don't order anymore. I kill millions of people in Bangladesh, not based on COVID, based on hunger, based on our globalization strategy and profit. Yeah. So I think profit first, maybe don't work long term. We have to really design things that have impact on human, and we have to do it carefully in my mind. That's what this shows me. You only so good to people you're working with.
Right.
And you need good people.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say one of the big impacts for healthcare has been the diversification of our supply chain. So if you remember back at the beginning of COVID, no one could get face masks or gloves, all of the PPE, because the majority of it was all made in one place, Wuhan, China. And so when they closed down, that affected our ability to get supplies at a time when the demand for it increased by like 300%. And so that was one thing like Medline is doing, is like, okay, now we're making hand sanitizer here in the United States, building a plant that will make masks here in the United States, so that you're not reliant on one region or one area should there be another tsunami, pandemic, right? Like fires, like we need to have things more diversified.
But I think that's a cool thing. We brought us in a situation what is terrible, but we able to get us out. So that means we have smart people. We have, we're not only talking. And that's is also very important for me on COVID. We can do a lot of things quick and good and here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Great.
We already have some good questions coming into the chat, which I strongly suggest people do that. I love questions coming through the chat, which we will get to. I do want to go back industry, because I think this story needs to be told, Christine, and all the way back to Kleenex boxes. Because for me, and it might not be for everyone, it's the kind of thing that you saw around in your life. And when you're in the design world, you see these artifacts, you go, that really could use some help. But you never really do anything about it, right? I don't call up Kimberly Clark and say, you know what, you need to redesign the Kleenex box. Because I know that's going to take forever to get them to get that idea that they need to do that. So, You never make that direct call, but then it happens and you go, oh my goodness, someone made the call. Someone raised their hand. And then at some point in time in my future, I met the person who raised their hand and said, let's do this. And that was you. So if you remember back anyway, I want you to tell that story of how that all came about, because it is a fascinating one.
Yeah, well, that's one of my passions, is to like do unexpected things with the commodity products that everyone just kind of takes for granted and kind of ignores. They just accept that it's boring and dull, right? So I think you're referencing the watermelon wedges, the fruit wedges. So how that started was we had some ambitious salespeople who came to me with a problem that I couldn't solve. So the problem was, hey, I want to get in that front section of Target, the promotional seasonal section. And the buyers at Target, like, they want stuff that's going to fly. They want the impulse purchase thing. And, come on, facial tissue does not really resonate there. So like, just put some flowers on. So you go back and you look at, well, let's look at the aisle. And the aisle is filled with beautiful flowers, bright colors. Like you could consider those summer motifs. And it's like, that's not going to be enough. So then it was, kind of doing some of that research of like, well, what signals summer to people, and came up with this idea of watermelon is like a universal signal of summer fun and happiness. Like you see watermelon, you just you remember picnics and like, this makes you smile. And so it's like, that is going to be the in. And so you put that on the square box and it just didn't seem awkward. It didn't really fly, right? So it's like, we got to change the shape of the box. And so kind of what you do is you ask for forgiveness later. So you create this whole idea, this concept. I put them in a little picnic basket, fly out to Minneapolis, present it to the buyers at Target, like, here it is. We're like, yes, how many can you make? We'll take everything, right? And then it was like going back and going, so guys, this is what I did. Like,
we figured this out.
Yeah, we figured this out. Now, to be fair, I had, we had been talking about playing with shapes and doing things and experimenting, but no one really knew what to do with this plain white triangle. So it wasn't until you could give it meaning and purpose. So now it's a summer wedge. You created all your fruits, and I think that was like a fan favorite for like 6 years. We're able to repurpose that into like decadent desserts at Christmas time, like red velvet cake and cherry pie. And we had a lot of fun with that. So that was one of those moments where the brief came in, and sometimes you have to go beyond the brief, which is just give me a new design pattern, because it wasn't really a problem.
It was definitely it was one of those moments in history when you go, oh, I wish I had done that. Right? It's the biggest nod to the brilliant minds out there in the world.
We had so much fun working on that series.
Cool.
Thanks.
Guido, you are a huge proponent of the circular economy. It's already come up in our conversation, and there's a lot of things that excite you about it and what's going on. Give us some things that you're seeing specifically in your new role, one of the new ventures you've got here in the US, and what's going on around that.
Yeah, when you see circular economy, it's around for a longer time, and I think was a little bit quieter in Europe after based on COVID, but popping up again. So, and I think Europe is way ahead of the whole recycling and driving sustainability green initiative. So for me, what I'm excited about, I bring a German startup in the US called Papax, and there's a circular economy / circular thinking. Yeah, so everything what we're doing is packaging material out of nature. Yeah, we go on fiber, we have fiber molding, but it's not only that we optimize the molding process of fiber, what is old. Yeah, we have also worked on different coatings, organic coatings. We're working on materials, injection moldable. So bring all the elements together, and maybe I have a paper bottle. Yeah, what I maybe can use. So the goal for us is be as circular as possible, but drive long-term the clean thinking. So we have right now production in Germany, but this is not circular when I produce in Germany and bring a paper bottle in the US. that is only temporary. So we have to also see how I establish this process here. Yeah, so for me, as what I said before, that I think designer has a responsibility in the early design also to know what's happened afterwards with their product. Not that you can control it, but you should know, so should not touch, in my mind, I will not touch things what is not recyclable or reusable. Yeah. And also you have to also think, connect to the institute, to the university. They're really going way further than we think. Yeah. So I developed actually a process with some friends of mine, a new framework of innovation. We call it step, stretch, and leap. Yeah. We always go for the big picture thinking, but I know that no company gives me 10 years on the development or creation. So that means we build a pipeline to come to the big picture. So you're actually on one concept, I give you step and stretch, but my end goal is always the big picture. Yeah. And that's also, you have to understand circular thinking. I usually say circular creativity, because every element is in this. So I think there will be coming strongly in the US circular economy, driven by big European companies. And you hear that a lot of companies say, oh, we need more sustainability, reduce, reuse, and recycle. There's a lot of talk around this, but how you bring it together, that's a key question. Yeah.
Like that.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
And this is in a similar vein, but I would start with you, Christine, if we could talk a little bit about, over the course of your career, when we think about the importance of brand and brand building efforts and allocating resources within organizations large and small for those efforts, how have you found, what strategies have you applied to sell into the C-suite the importance of marketing and brand building and the perceptions of your brand as, as it pertains to clients, customers, consumers? Any thoughts you can share there?
Yeah, that is the one that I think we all have in common, and that we share, and we run into that resistance so often, whether it's decision makers or up at the C-suite level. And what I found is, if you ask for, this is what I want to do, this is what it will cost, can I go do that? The answer is typically no, because Guido can see 10 years in the future, and he knows, very confident we're going to get there. But a lot of times these decision makers can't. And what I found is, I just go ahead and start doing it. You just start small, like, well, let's just do a little bit of that thinking on this project, move it a little bit. And you start showing where it's going and showing the trajectory. You start working with what I call the early adopters. There'll be one team in any big organization. There'll be one team who's like, yeah, let's do it. And so I don't worry about the other 90%. I work with that one team who wants to do it. And then I'm able to create that case study. So now, again, I'm not going and saying, hey, will you fund this? Will you pay for it? I have people coming to me saying, can you do for me what you did for that team?
Right.
It really turns it. So I stop chasing it. I just demonstrate and then let them kind of opt in. And I found that is the fastest way to move it. And along the way, you have to celebrate those successes. You have to make them very public. You have to talk about it at every opportunity. You have to reference it in other things. You have to award the behavior that helped make that happen. And then other people want to join that club, right? Everyone wants to be on the winning team. So you kind of create that winning team culture. Doesn't everyone want to be a part of this? And it just makes it a lot easier than going, from zero to, I want to have like this design brand culture, and this is what we need to do it. Some people are fortunate to get like a CMO or a CEO suite who thinks that way. But I think they're in the minority still. I mean, hopefully that'll change in the future, but.
We all hope, yes. But you're right, having that tangible output to show just something that someone who doesn't live in the brand world or marketing world can attach themselves
and
to.
It has to be from that company. Like, you can show them Uber and Starbucks and Apple all day, and they're like, well, that's Coke, that's Starbucks. Like, we sell widgets.
Right.
So it has to be from within their company. Yeah.
That's a great.
I think that's the only way what Christina described, to get innovation or changes in let me say, I call them big monsters, big companies. Yeah, but it's hard. And you have to continue to do this. You have to educate again. There's a new CEO coming, you start again. Yeah, so that's only a few people that can do this. Yeah, and you have to be honest. It's not that everybody has this passion, the power, and the creativity like that, like somebody like Christina. Yeah, this is hard work. I did it for 40 years in my company, and then I decided I'm done, because you have to educate it again and again. And then come people, and she said it. It's people. You go out, they say, "Oh, that don't fit to my brand." Yeah, but this is not what I mean. And then you do it. Oh, can you do it for me? So it's a kind of the tipping point, you know. It's like spread out everything, and that's I did a couple of these things, but it's hard work. And not everybody is doing this and has the patience, so that you're still looking so smiling and everything to convince. It's actually
small win.
No, because I love being in the same room as someone else who understands the journey, and someone else who has the vision, and someone else that I learn from. So
yeah,
I get a lot of energy from these talks.
It's hard work, but it's without people like you, it will never happen. Yeah. So you have to, let me say, you don't have to do design thinking workshops. You don't have to do innovation workshops. Find the Christinas in your world and let them, give them freedom. This big companies has to do, in my mind.
So can we clone Christine?
And Guido, like, the whole team.
Or take, so that's the reason that I start to lecture. I am doing now 3 semesters at the university, because I like to convince people how was my life. It's not I going in, I'm an innovative today. No, you're not.
That's so cool. Where are you lecturing?
Rutgers. I'm on my 16th semester. So I lecture undergrad, product design on packaging innovation. I mentor 26 seniors. And I started last year a new lecture on a master program called Creativity. I'm on creativity and invention. Yeah, so it's fun. And that's what this thinking. I say, look, don't come out and so we do some projects. I give them projects. I lecture live, not a book. Yeah. So, and I have the highest rank semester at Rutgers. You know, I'm not a teacher.
I believe it.
I lecture live. But I think I always was, Christina said, I lecture, I say, don't come in and I give them a theme and they're coming up with ideas. I say, first, I'm not interested on any idea right now. Figure out first your fundamentals. Start, who is your customer? What is your competition? And how you make impact. Yeah, I don't want to change the packaging base looks cool. I want impact. Yeah. And when I left Bayer, I spoke with a good friend of mine, and I said to her, I like to work on projects that have meaning and not a business case. Yeah, and I
Can
think
you say that again? Meaning and what?
Not a business case. In the first,
okay.
The business case has to come back. There's no question. But if in your creativity you put money first, you get nowhere. If you get somewhere and then you try to match this in your profit model, then you can create something.
You know, would you call that human-centered design? I mean,
yes. I think you have to, and you have to understand you have different customers. I did years ago a project called Daily Routine. So we looked actually behavior models of people, not on brands. Look, what impact your day? And we figured out that everybody, and maybe everybody, starts the morning with a coffee machine and with a TV. But we also figured out a lot of people, millennials, have older parents, and their parents have to take certain medication. If not, they can die. Yeah, so that was very impactful of the people that we interviewed, that their parents don't take the tablet. So one of the idea what we create actually a 7-day medication box, what you prepare. If you're not open your medication box, you take the tablet, you get not start your coffee machine or your TV. Yeah, but this is how you bring it in. And I think we have to, the same thing when we talk about circular economy, we have to design stuff what you not necessarily means is I'm stupid because I don't do it. That helps me and that goes in your flow. Yeah.
Sure.
Wow.
Yep.
This is the kind of
We're
stuff
trying
you
to
would.
figure out the same thing, like with hand hygiene, how, like, you know how you have to put on your brake in order to put your car into reverse, right? You
Yeah.
can't go in reverse. Like, how do
Yeah.
you make it so, like, if I don't put on the hand hygiene, I can't walk into the next room, right?
Yeah.
So how do I, like, have to take the pill to get my coffee? I love that thinking.
Yeah, but this is what I think when you say human-centered design. Let me forget design thinking. Let us holistic creativity, because then you bring all the angles together. You're looking at and make this box. I need, how do I get this engineered? What is smart technology I bring in? Actually, who I learn when people don't wash their hand on the toilet. So how I convince them? Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that. Yeah, that is so good. Because it's human-centered, but it doesn't mean you're just being, catering to the human being. You are helping the human being be a smarter being, right? Helping them change their behaviors without even realizing it. Using this stuff for good instead of using it for evil or just beauty.
Yeah, I running also parallel for years on Debbie's school, on School of Visual Art, in the brand strategy. I was Elizabeth Tarman. We do semesters, and they come always to me and say, Guido, can we create something with a different view? So we created a semester, how I brand a condition. Yeah, and we work with hemophilia, with a hemophilia organization, because you're not, you have a condition, you will be never out, but how you have to shut your every day, who impact your life. And it was so cool to really see design something in your life that you make, and we call it the hero concept. Yeah. And I think these kind of projects are super. I did something for cancer. Understand when you have cancer treatment, actually who is involved, who is worried about you. It's not only you have cancer, it's your family. Yeah, and how I actually bring this as not an adventure, but how I help everybody in this to treat better. I had yesterday, I had the week interview with somebody that likes this kind of concept, and I do some genetic modeling. And he said, we have every year in the US 1.7 million cancer patients, but we're missing 2,000 oncologists. So how I help the patient diagnosed with this, that they don't feel alone, how I connect them. I think this is designer responsibility to see the whole elements and go beyond a pill.
Empathic.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in healthcare for kind of evolving how we treat people, disease, interactions, that whole experience. And the hospitals are focusing on that with patient experience right now, but they can only do so much. I think they need a lot of people like Guido out there, like coming up with these ideas and solutions.
Actually, what I said, that was very nice. I wrote a concept for NYU, and they have a lot of the patient services. And when you're looking at what is patient services, the people that clean the operational room, they clean the patient room, they carry the, I had surgery. I'm not used like in Germany. We will not be carried out in a wheelchair that nothing happened in the way out. So these group doing all the stuff. So, but I learned that they have a lot of problems to train new people that clean rooms.
Yes.
Yeah. So I wrote them a pitching with virtual reality, so with the VR training to how they train the room in a kind of gaming model. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So I can actually now clean a patient room, and I know what I have to do. But I think it's important to involve people. Yeah, and I said it to Aaron, as I'm a big fan of when you're looking also in design from Confucius. Tell me I forgot. Show me I remember. Involve me, I understand. And I think this is what is design. We have to involve, and then people will get it. We connect.
That's great.
That is great. I have to ask you, did that pillbox ever come to market? The turn the coffee machine off?
Actually, so when now with Bayer, forget it. Yeah, that you do project, you have a business case, not a meaning. But with my own, I have actually one of the areas I like to develop my own products. Yeah, so I'm looking right now, I set me up to do grants And actually, I develop right now not a pill box like this. By myself, I have to take blood pressure pills, but I always forgot to reorder, yeah, or go refill. So I'm working on a platform that every single pharmacist, when I buy my pill bottle, the bottle will measure the volume, so then it's still pill in, but my pharmacist can actually see this and can remember me that I have to do a refill to the doctor. So I do similar things, but I really still like to do this. And if I have a chance, I find a guy that like to invest in this, I will go after this.
That's great. That's great. We might have some investors on this call today. So
Yeah, right. You might get some calls.
That's great.
I want to shift gears a little bit and go back to the beginning of the pandemic. And I checked in with you, Christine, and I remember you weren't as cheerful as you are now. I remember you were kind of in the middle of it, and it was a little deer in the headlights. It was a little like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? But you did have some proud statements about what Medline had done or was doing, or how you were adapting. So it was more of a prideful conversation and less of a cheery conversation, which is good to see you in a good cheery mood today for sure, because that was scary times for everyone on different levels and for different reasons. Go back to the beginning of this. What inspired you? You've seen in this time period being pretty close to the center of the medical community.
So it's that human spirit that MacGyver in everybody. So when we were short on PPE, hospitals had figured out that raincoats could be a substitute for a gown. They figured out that if they couldn't get a mask or a shield, they could wear their motorcycle helmets. So they were doing all kinds of really interesting things that just showed that everybody is creative. Right, you meet some people who are like, oh, I'm not creative, like you are or something. And it's like, no, everybody I think is creative. They just don't always see themselves that way. And so, you saw people coming together. You saw people, in New York, the clapping at 7 p.m. because they realized this is a big deal that the clinicians are going today and taking care of us. And I think what we need to remember is they're still doing that. We've all gotten bored of the pandemic. We're bored of being home. We're ready to get back. And I was on a call yesterday with some, people from a hospital system, and they're watching the numbers start to go back up. And I could see the fear in their eyes because they know what's going to happen and they know what they're going to witness. And, for them, they're like, just please stay home. Just stay home until you all get vaccinated.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was exciting is seeing how people kind of rally together, and like Pfizer and J&J and Moderna, right? They figured out how to get these trials done. They figured out how to create these vaccines when we really needed them. So yeah, applause to all of those people, all these different levels, people sewing masks in their kitchen, right? People rallied together.
Yeah. And
that gives me hope, right?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we were able to do trials in an environment where it would be hard to do trials of anything, right?
Yes.
I mean, you have to realize how much that exponentially makes it more challenging, right? Not only did we speed it up, but we sped it up at a time when it's hard to speed that kind of thing up. I kept reading things about that, and it's profound. Yeah. And also, it broke a lot of things, right? It broke a lot of past perceptions of how much time it really takes.
The other outcome, and I don't know much about it, but I'm curious to see, is how we educate our children, right? So we all knew that our educational system, if you put everybody of the same age in a class together and they all read from the same book and they go at the same pace, and then they all had to go to this online learning. I don't think either is perfect, but I think it's creating a catalyst for that reinvention in an area where we've known we should do something, but everybody's always been too busy and, hasn't put time into it. Is this the catalyst that helps those inventors and those forward thinkers to go, hey, I had something I've been trying out. Let me share it with all of you. And maybe this becomes the new way of doing things that you know, that
Yeah.
every kid is allowed to, you know, get the best education tailored to them. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true.
Would be a wonderful outcome from
I
this.
know, for sure.
Guido, Guido, what did you see in this that inspired you?
Let me say what Christina said is we learn we can do things much faster. Yeah, we lost in a lot of things, a lot of time based on people that are sitting on their documents and waiting. It goes faster. We can see a lot of things are possible. There's a lot of bad things happen. My whole family almost, or my new family almost works in healthcare system, and how many people passed away around them. And you are always happy when your partner coming home and it's nothing. Oh, I get tested. Oh, now I'm get vaccine. It's like, oh, it's like a relief. Yeah. And but I think there's a lot of things bad happen, but I think we should look, not live in the past, start to play in the future and build on this, what came out good out of this. Like I can do a clinical trial in a year, not in 10. Yeah. So, yeah, and a lot of people, yeah, design things. Yeah, I usually love this phrase, and you know I'm full of this. As from Mark Twain, there are two important things in your life. The first when you're born, and the second when you figured out why. Yeah. So, and some people have a certain talent. Yeah. And when you have a talent, go for it. And maybe people figure it out now. I'm actually good at this. And don't stick in your old world what you hate. Try. It's not easy. That sounds easy. But try to go after this where you're good in and your talent. And I think a lot of people show actually that talent and they make something out of this. And that's what I take out of this. There's a lot of bad things, a lot of learning. We should not fall in the same path what we had before. I'm not sure that we don't will, because money talks. Yeah. But I think yeah, take the positive things and build on them.
Yeah.
That's what
You know, case in point, 40 years at Bayer, and now you've shifted, you've pivoted, and you're doing, you know, leaning into your strength. So that's impressive to see. Scary, I'm sure, initially, but it, wish you all the best with the new organization, the company. Want to hear a little bit more about that, and we'll follow that closely. If I could shift gears, but related, you know, to what you're saying, one of our last questions here. We in our pre-chat, we talked a little bit about the changes to the future around where we work. And we're obviously going to see a shift in the way that we work. If both of you could share some thoughts around, you know, the skills that you think employers are going to seek from employees, both the soft and hard skills. The hard, you know, the technical certainly can be learned, but what about the soft skills? Anything that you can share around what you're seeing or within your own organizations, or what you think will be the new important skills to bring to the future of work? Who wants to take that one first? That was not a pre-question.
No, not a problem. But I like to give, because I can start when you want.
Sure.
Yeah, so for me, let me say, you say 40 years Bayer, now I have something new, because I think big companies changing a lot. So there's a lot of people that are coming in new, and I started for myself to say I'm done with educational people. So I waited in the end of the day to the point that I get a golden handshake, what I get. Yeah, so I'm pretty safe for a while. But what I learned is there's a lot of talking and a lot of doing. Yeah. So what I try to do within Criel and Papa not so, but with Criel is actually tackle this thing and maybe go back and educate the people that we need by ourselves. So recruiting out of my lecture, bring people together that I know. Yeah. So it depends what you do, and you have to see where you can commit to do. Yeah. I will not do anything that I don't have experience. Yeah. So, and the people that I work, we do this softly to build the skills, what they need. And when we don't have the skills to help somebody, I will not do it based on money. Yeah.
That's a great approach, for sure.
I don't know. It's my thinking.
It would be appreciated.
I come out where I thought about, I work in a company where people let me say, for me, everybody can learn everything if you bring it in the right environment. And I like to create this, family environment that you can trust each other, not somebody laugh in you and then put you a knife in the back. What I think you have a lot in big companies, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, if you're higher level job, what they want your job. Yeah. So, but I don't want this. Yeah. So I want really, so people have to understand. And let me say what Christina said before. What we're doing has to come out of fundamentals, not going in and say, I change the world. No, no, I have to understand first how the world is. So that's maybe the skills, what I'm looking for, to have the empathy of who is your customer.
Mhm.
And
Right.
trust. I
Yeah.
think trust is a big thing for me.
Yes.
And maybe an empathy for who's your peer, who are you working with?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think one of the skills that will be much needed and appreciated is that a more entrepreneurial attitude of, okay, I understand where the company's goals are for the year. I have ideas on how to get there, and I'm a self-starter. I'm going to start making things happen, because we're not all together in the room where someone can like see you and observe that you're stuck and tell you what to do like every hour. Like you do that amount of coaching, just because we can't see what everyone's doing all day. Like I feel like there's a loss where I can't see the team's mood through the day, right? I used to be aware of like kind of the chatter outside of the door, and if is the energy high, is the energy, there's some sort of crisis going on, some sort of stressor. You don't know that. So as a leader, you don't know when should I go in and kind of say, hey, like, maybe we need to talk, or let's get together and solve this problem. So people need to on their own come forward earlier, or they need to raise their hand, they need to have ideas. So it's this idea of a self-starter, someone who comes forward with ideas, with solutions, and not afraid to come forward with the problems. Hey, I'm really stuck on this. I wasn't real clear what you wanted me to do.
Mhm.
Now that we're all remote, you can't just sit there for 8 hours. Like you
Right.
have to come forward.
I think they're super important, but I think that's the leadership, or when you are in a leadership function, you have to foster to do this. I think in big company, a lot of people have maybe good ideas, but they're worried to get out because they're not companies. Let me say, not only worry, if you're coming out with ideas and you don't take them, people stepping back and they don't come up with ideas anymore. I think it's also to push these kind of stuff. Other organization is very important to get these people out. And I think there's a lot of creative people out. They're hiding based
Mhm.
on in the organization.
So really creating an environment where it's safe to
Yeah.
come forward
Yeah.
with ideas and present ideas. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you both. That's great. Thank you.
I get
Yes.
to ask the final question. It's a surprise question.
Yes. Question.
The I get it to take away from Kelly. The do either of you have, or both of you have, a book, a bit of content, a show, something that you've been enjoying during the pandemic that you can share with our audiences? Christine, you want to start us off with a book that you found good or worthy? Maybe a YouTube channel, maybe a show that you think
So
our audience would enjoy.
I'm probably behind the rest of the world of just finishing The Crown, because it was, one, entertaining, and two, learned a lot of, and I know it's not like maybe specifically accurate every conversation, but in general, a little bit of the history and appreciation for that whole regime. But I think I've been spending more time like doing more things with my hands. So getting into like doing block printing, right? So it's like, hey, like what's the next holiday coming up? And I do the design, do the block, and do like a mass mailing of like 40, just to like think of like, oh, a little piece of art showing up in people's mailboxes. Like it's a way to stay connected, because this Zoom thing just isn't fully satisfying for me.
Yeah.
I gotta check my mailbox. I gotta check my mailbox. See, that sounds cool. I love that.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, that is so cool. Do you have something that you've?
Yeah, let me say, I when I watch TV shows, usually I watch stupid TV shows that I don't have to think. So actually, I go and end of the day, I watch for a season or two and go out and don't know what I watched. Yeah. So, but what I actually enjoy is two things. Is I rewatch a documentary called Happy. Yeah, it's actually something to what makes you happy and other people. They have nothing and makes them happy. This is always very cool to learn. And then I watched the movie you saw, Lent. It's new now. It's actually a lady. She lost her family on a drive shooting thing, and then she totally lost it, and she went cabin in the wilderness, and it's all about her experience and actually how she come and who helped her to come back in life.
That's on my list to watch.
Yeah, I like
cool.
this. It's sometimes is interesting because she almost gives up, and she broke contact to everybody. But then she get back to other person. I like this. So, but happiness is. I watched this years ago, and in the pandemic, I say, okay, I have to watch this again because we let me say we are not. We are in a bad situation, but we are not in a bad situation compared to other people. And to refresh, there's always, we are bad, but people are much worse than we are. Yeah. And to see what makes you happy sometimes. We
A little thing. Yeah.
The wrong things make us happy, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that. At one point in time, I went deep into the happiness index and like which are the happiest countries and all kinds of other things around that subject area. It's a really fascinating area. And what you think about happiness, like the people that have money or the people that have status are actually not happy, which ties back to the crown and the fact that there was an interview recently and some people are not happy, yet, they have a ton of wealth and a ton of status. It's really kind of sad, right?
Yeah.
It tells you, a perspective on that. Anyway, thank you all for attending and showing up here on another Thursday for our Think and Link events. Visit capsule.us anytime. Come see our new office if you'd like. If you're actually here in the Twin Cities, we have a new wonderful garden space. And Guido and Christine, thank you for showing up and attending and doing this wonderful thing for us. This has been great. I love having conversations. When this first came together, it was like, these are two people that I have had wonderful conversations with in the past that I've thoroughly enjoyed, that I admire from a great distance. And I wanted to hear how this interaction would go because I've never seen you two have a conversation, and that was wonderful. Thank you.
Guido, Christine, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thanks for pulling this together. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Looking forward to give you a hug someday, okay?
Yes.
Virtual.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.